Okay, so it's a little past 6:30. I know some folks are still getting settled, but we have a real full agenda tonight, and we're so thankful that everybody's here. So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Pierce County Ag Advisory Committee to order. And our first item would be approval of the agenda.
So, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and we have some people online too, I know, so any opposed?
Slackers.
Okay, the agenda's approved. With that, we're going to move right into the agenda, which primarily is the Agritourism Forum, for which you're all here. And again, we want to thank you because this kind of a forum is so important. Agritourism and agriculture is very individual, but when we act as a group and we compare notes, lots of times we have a greater impact. And that's the goal, and that's been the goal of the committee. So on behalf of the committee, I'd like to welcome you all here tonight and let you know that this is the beginning of a conversation. It's not the end, and we hope that we will have continuation of these kind of forums throughout the years, and it all comes down to participation, and it all comes down to you. So thank you again for being here. I'd like to introduce the Ag Advisory Committee. Some are online, some are here, and these folks give their time, and they have since the Ag Committee was reinstated several years ago through the help of the Pierce County Council, and we are directly advisory to the council. So we have been able, we feel, to have a significant impact through the input and knowledge of our committee members. And I am fortunate enough this year to be the chair. My name's Jerome O'Leary. Our vice chair.
I am Dan Pica, Pica Farms.
And Dave.
Dave Schockler, Eatonville Nursery.
Misha.
Misha Ide, Bright Eyed Acres, and Eat Local First.
And then who do we have online?
Paul Mosby.
And Paul Mosby's online with Mosby Farms. Folks that aren't or can't be in attendance tonight, Becky Weed with the Harlow Cattle Company. She's had a veterinarian emergency, right, Tom, that has popped up. Ben DeGotti with DeGotti Farms and Windmill Garden. Tim Curtis with Storino Farms. And Jim Croft. Jim is one of our members here and key to us being here tonight. WSU is our host, and Jim works with the WSU Extension Center here. And with that, then, I would like to call up Ryan Mello to do introductions of our electeds.
Well, thank you, Chair O'Leary. Good morning, good evening, everybody. It feels like it's morning, long day. Good evening, everybody. It's good to see everyone. My name's Ryan Mello. I have the great honor of serving as the chair of the Pierce County Council. Thank you. I'm excited to be with everyone to learn together tonight. I want to first introduce a few of my colleagues who've made time to be with us this evening to also learn with you and demonstrate how important the agricultural economy is to Pierce County. We have three of my colleagues here. Councilmember Dave Morrell is here. Councilmember Amy Kruver is here. And Councilmember Paul Herrera is here. Thank you for making time to be here. I also want to note that one of our key staff members, Tom Swanson, is here, who really helps facilitate and staff the Agricultural Advisory Committee on the Council's behalf, and also Mike Poteet from Planning and Public Works, who is the Chief Liaison, who works on implementation of agricultural issues from the Pierce County staff, is also here. I wanted to also just give some brief remarks before we dive into our work. I'm no stranger to the agricultural economy and agricultural work. Before I joined the county council to cause trouble with Dave, Amy, and Paul, I professionally ran the Pierce Conservation District, was at the Conservation District for 10 years, helping to provide services to local agricultural producers to conserve their natural resources, help solve problems, and and be better stewards of the land. And we know that our agricultural producers are some of the very best stewards of the land. So I'm pleased to be back out here at the WSU campus to have another very important conversation. You know, we're unified about a lot of things on our council. We truly are unified about a great many things. One of the things we're really unified about is how important the agricultural economy is to the current and future economy and quality of life of Pierce County. And I want to sincerely thank you, especially many of you are business owners, do business in Pierce County. Thank you for doing business in Pierce County. Thank you for running your businesses and your farms, selling your products in Pierce County. Also want to just briefly share with you, we take, as Chair O'Leary said, the work of the Agriculture Advisory Committee is really important. It's directly advisory to the Pierce County Council. There's no middlemen. And we hear directly from them, and we want to always, and we take the recommendations very seriously. I just want to share a few of the recommendations that we've heard recently. Before I get to some of those, just last night even, the Pierce County Council worked unanimously to update the Pierce County Conservation Futures Code to, this is a conservation program in the agricultural economy. Many of you have used this program to conserve your development rights on your property so that the soil can stay in active agricultural working status. We had a unanimous vote yesterday to update that code to make it more user-friendly, easier to use, so that when willing sellers are wanting to sell their development rights to protect their farm, as an example, and keeping in a working status, that is easier to do. We receive recommendations on the regular from the commission. We're very grateful for that. There's a current update to the right to farm code that's actively being discussed at the advisory committee. We're eager to receive some really specific feedback about how we can update the right to farm code. We heard that regional meat processing continues to be a major barrier, finding places to take your meat, your product to be harvested and cut and wrapped and taken to market. That continues to be a major barrier in communities like Pierce County. And we allocated $35,000 of our American Rescue Plan Act dollars to better understand this and figure out how we can work with Thurston County in this example to understand what those barriers are and work together to fix them. We continue to hear that drainage is an issue, and we look forward to getting really specific recommendations about how we can address the drainage issues that we're hearing about from property owners, so you can have longer cycles to grow on your land. We've heard, we know that you're working on updates to the current use assessment, that tax incentive tool on your property taxes, where if you put your land in current use assessment and agree to keep it in active working land for a period of time, that you'll get a reduction in your property taxes. Well, we know that we can do better and make that easier to use, and so we're grateful that there's a committee of the advisory committee working with the Assessor Treasurer's Office to help us get some really specific recommendations to do better there. The council allocated more funding so we can have more staff to actually implement the ideas that come out of the advisory committee, right? We can have all the great ideas coming from the Agriculture Advisory Committee, but if we don't have the staff to work within county government to really untangle the things and really work to move them forward, then that advice is not going to go very far. So we've invested in more staff to help make the ideas come to fruition. And also, like tonight, we know that one of the main ways that we keep our working farms working is by making sure you're economically viable. We know that very clearly. We know that we need to create more value streams. We know that we need to create more opportunities for economic development and income streams. And that is why events like tonight are really important, so we can learn together about the hurdles of agritourism. How can we make our Pierce County Code better and easier to use to promote agritourism, so again, we can create more value streams. So tonight is one part of that, and you have our commitment to continue to listen and learn with you and act and implement with you. again, we take the work of the Agricultural Advisory Committee so seriously. You know, up until this point, it's been a temporary advisory committee. Well, there's a bill at the Pierce County Council to make the advisory committee permanent. And I'm confident we're going to act on that. I'm confident it'll be a unanimous vote, and we're going to enthusiastically work to. You heard it here first, to my council members. We really do sincerely want and need the ongoing advice, and you have our commitment to work on the issues. I also want to acknowledge that Puyallup Mayor Dean Johnson is here. Thank you, Mayor. I also want to acknowledge that former Mayor of Sumner is here. Bill Pugh. Thank you, Mayor Pugh and Mayor Johnson. So again, thank you again for having us. Thank you for the work that you do. You have our commitment to continue to work together. So thank you very much.
For God's sake, don't take my notes. Thank you very much, Councilman Mello. With that, one of the key people that have really helped staff along the way as it relates to agriculture is Mike Poteet. And I'd like, Mike, if you would just come up, please, and introduce the staff that you were able to assemble tonight. The staff is here to help you. And Mike, please.
Thank you, Jerome. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see so many faces here, old and new. Mike Poteet, Pierce County Planning and Public Works. I'm the Senior Agricultural Planner in the Long Range Planning Division. We have a few county colleagues with us here tonight, so after the session is over, we'll stick around for a while. If you have questions, we're able to work with you. My colleague, Dean McClary, is here with the Ag program. Raise your hand, Dean, so people can see you. He's our new hire that Councilmember Mello mentioned. We have Jeff Roscoe from Development Engineering. If you have questions about stormwater and drainage, he's the person to go to. Also traffic and other fun things like that. We have Yvonne Reed from the Building Division in the back. She can answer questions about use of structures. We have Ken Rice, the Fire Marshal. There he is sitting down. He's got his hand up. Can't miss him. So any questions related to public safety can go to him. And I don't see my folks from the health department. We've got, here we are. We got Carolyn Bassett, and we've got Josh Hurd, and a third person who I'm not sure is here, but okay, Natalia is here too. So those are questions on food safety and water systems and things like that. So we have a pretty nice group of people here that can help. I think I got everybody from the county staff. So with that, I'll turn it back to Jerome. We get this thing underway. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. And again, Mike's position's been instrumental in advancing some of our efforts throughout the county. So with that, is Dan Muir? Oh, hey, Dan. Dan is now with the Washington State Farm Bureau. Dan was our coordinator from our reinstatement until just about a month ago. Did a tremendous job for us interacting with the county and keeping us organized as a committee, and now has taken a position with Washington State Farm Bureau. So, Dan?
Hey, Jerome, do we want to put some of these chairs out? I see some people standing.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Getting everything set up. There we go. Right, well, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Jerome. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed my time working with the Ag Committee, and now I'm on to expanding the area out from Pierce County out to the western side of the state, working for the Farm Bureau. As Jerome said, I am Dan Muir, the Member Services Coordinator for the Washington Farm Bureau. I'd like just to make 2 points right off the top. The Farm Bureau has resources to help with agritourism right now. And on top of that, as a member, you have a major influence on what the Farm Bureau continues to develop and implements in terms of agritourism support. So let me tell you, just take a second or a couple seconds here to tell you about the Washington Farm Bureau for those that aren't as familiar with it. It is a voluntary grassroots organization working on behalf of farmers, ranchers, consumers, and businesses in Washington State. It's made up of 25 different county farm bureaus across the state, and it's the largest agriculture organization representing over 300 commodities, and it's for the members, by the members. So there's different, if you're a member, you can have different memberships. There's the farmers membership, producers, a business membership for businesses, and associate membership for associate members. It's only $20, and you don't have to be a farmer to be a member of the Farm Bureau. And so if you just want to support agriculture, you can do that with just a $20 membership. So anyways, the Farm Bureau advocates based on policy that is developed by its members. So it really is grassroots. It's from the bottom up is how it's governed. As a member of the Farm Bureau, you drive Farm Bureau policy. So if you want the Farm Bureau to lobby for and support agritourism, you can call for that as a member, and both at the local level, county level, and at the state as well. The Farm Bureau works, how does it work? So it starts with the individual members, as I said. Members can attend board meetings, and they can serve on committees and become board members themselves. Let's take a look at some of the member committees that there are. Members decide what the state staff is working on through committees. So when I say it's grassroots, it's literally the members that are rolling it up the chain to determine what the staff actually works on. So some of the committees you can serve on if you're a member, there's the membership committee, policy development committee, legislative committee, women's leadership, young farmers and ranchers, and the promotion and education committee. And now, talking about agritourism, we have a member in Snohomish that's looking very strongly at trying to form a statewide committee on agritourism itself. So I have a pretty good idea that that's actually going to become a formalized committee within the Farm Bureau. All right, well, we're here to talk about agritourism, right? So simply stated, agritourism could be thought of as the crossroads of tourism and agriculture. So regardless of the exact definition, any definition of agritourism should include these following four factors, okay? It combines the essential elements of the tourism and agriculture industries. It attracts members of the public to visit agriculture operations. It's designated to increase farm income, and it provides recreation, entertainment, and/or educational experiences to visitors. So most of the farmers I talk to, there's two of those things that pop out. I mean, any of those can be what your operation is trying to accomplish, but increasing farm income is very important. In fact, a lot of people are looking towards agritourism as a way to actually to stay viable. They're actually turning towards that. And also the education experience is also very important, because bringing people onto your property and your farm operation that don't really understand farming, don't even know where their food comes necessarily, that's hugely important opportunity to say, hey, this is reality, this is how it all works. So those are two really big reasons for agritourism, among others. It's definitely growing. As I said, many more operations that never thought about agritourism in the past are now looking towards it as a way, once again, to supplement their income and stay viable as an operation. I have a couple numbers here, which are probably low at this point, but at last time we checked, 800 farm stands across the state and over 200 farmers markets. So agritourism is more than that, but those are a couple examples. So what can the Farm Bureau provide? The Farm Bureau communications are focused on local food, farm stands, farmers markets, and agritourism locations. We can provide signage. So I have Mike help me out by holding one end of this. So this is an example of the limited liability. Some of you might be familiar with this, it might be new to some of you. But if you're inviting people onto your property, this is the notice that says, hey everyone, we're covered under limited liability. And you actually need this if you want to be covered. From that, you need to post a signage. Thanks, Mike. So the Farm Bureau actually produces these signs, and whether you're a member or not, you're welcome to purchase them at a reduced price. I went online and I saw what some of them are being offered for. I think that's around $40 or $45. There's signs for like over $100 on the internet or whatever. So we can provide that type of thing. What we provide for free, for no cost, and there's some over there on that table, so help yourself if you want it. But this is from the Promotion and Education Committee developed these, and it's just, this is part of the education component when you're inviting people onto your property. So, you know, no farmers, no food. That's a good one, right? And so please take these if you want. They're free. There's actually stakes that you can use to stick into the ground. So who grows your food? Let's think about it. Let's understand it. 96% of all Washington farms are family owned. You hear a lot about corporate farming, but people don't understand that it actually isn't as large as a percentage of farms as people make it out to be. And on top of that, even the so-called corporate farms are actually family-owned farms. So there's that, more show and tell for you. The Farm Fresh Washington website, Farm Bureau has created. That's farmfresh.org. And so that is an online resource created by the Farm Bureau to serve as a one-stop shop for sources of local food, drinks, and experiences and more. Now, when I look at this, it makes sense in my mind that there's some partnerships out there that are pretty natural. For instance, Misha Ide is the coordinator of the Eat Local First effort, and so I'll say that as well, eatlocalfirst.org. So there's an opportunity, I think, here to really combine forces, and there might be some information on that website, information on our website that are complementary. There's the Neighbors magazine, which the Farm Bureau puts out to its members, and almost always there is a piece in here on agritourism and someone's operation in the state that's a member, and it really details their agritourism efforts. And so once I said agritourism is growing, it's a big deal. Now, as far as this goes, it goes out to over 50,000 people, and it's a good selling point for agritourism, as I said, but you might be interested to hear that if you're a member, you can get your article in this magazine. It's no cost to you. So the cost of your membership is basically not only paid for, but now you're getting money back because you have free advertising. And we want people to say, please let us be in this magazine, and we'll be more than happy. We're actually looking for farmers that want to be featured. So I just want to point that out. This is a really good opportunity, specifically about agritourism, specifically focusing on agritourism operations across the state. So other organizations that we like to promote, even though we might not specifically be involved in them. I think a lot of us are familiar with county farm guides. There's many counties have these. This particular one, has a map, lists the farms, lists what they grow. This is in Lewis County, and the reason I have this example is because this was actually funded by a cooperation between the Lewis County Farm Bureau and Washington State University Extension. So these are actually things that are in our office. Our office is located in Lacey, the headquarters, and people can walk in and take these things. Some of this the Farm Bureau is not involved in specifically, but we want to get the information out there anyway. So you have the Farmers Market Directory. We have Washington Grown magazine, which we do not produce, but the Washington State Department of Ag does, and so we're happy to get all this information out there. So as far as if you have any interest in being a member, if you aren't already, we actually put a QR code on the table over there. You can just take a picture of it with your camera, and that'll take you to the membership information. So that's what I have for now. Looking forward, we all have in common a goal to connect farmers and ranchers who grow their food with the general public, right? And so I'm really interested personally to hear from the farmers tonight what they have to say. So that's all I have for now. And thanks a lot. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you.
Okay, with that, thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate that. I noticed too, Sarah Howard walked in, and Sarah is the current president of the King Pierce Farm Bureau, which is on the local level. Dan, of course, is with the state. So Sarah, thank you for being here. Anybody that's on Zoom, we're about to start our panel. We are not able to hear you. So if you're on Zoom and you have a question, please put that question in the chat. Tom Swanson will try to get it to the panelist, and when we're taking questions from the floor, we'll try to address it that way. At this point, I'd like to introduce and ask up our panelists tonight. We are really thrilled to have the people that we have. So come on up, and I'll introduce you all together, if that's all right. One of our panelists that agreed to be here tonight is sick, unfortunately, and that was Rich Cockrell. And Rich has Cockrell hard cider, and he regrettably couldn't be here tonight. But we still feel that we have a very high quality and diverse panel group. So before we even get started, I just want to thank you all for taking your time to come tonight. Our first panelist here is Clinton Bridges from McMillan Farm. And then we have Belinda Kelly and Venice Cunningham with Simple Goodness Sisters. And then we have my wife, Christy Schultz, with Snowshoe Evergreen, and she is going to talk mainly about the retail side of that business. So again, pretty diverse group, diverse in the geographic locations throughout the county, and certainly in product type. So thank you all for being here. We prepared some questions for you, and as we said, the first part of this is going to be the structured questions, and then we'll ask for questions from the floor for the panel. And that could extend to our committee or to county staff when we go to the floor. This is to try to stay a little bit global in concept. It's not going to talk about any one person's farm as it relates to a specific issue. There are different opportunities for that. So this is for general purposes. So think about that when you ask your questions, if you'd be kind enough to do that. That would be great. This doesn't have to be a love fest. If there are questions that are challenges, we want to hear about them. The elected officials are here tonight with an open mind, and they're here to actually hear how this is working, as is county staff. So our first question, and talking of global, you guys can answer if you want to participate, and if you don't, it's just a pass. The first question is, where do you see agritourism going in Pierce County as an industry, and what can Pierce County staff and elected officials do to support the industry? So Clinton, do you?
Down the line here.
Yep, you start here.
I would say I'm pretty new to the scene, so I'm not 100% as in tune perhaps as some other people in the room. But agritourism is kind of a must. Small farms, as we know it, are kind of on the way out. And anybody who wants to stick around as a small farm has to find ways to add value to their products. So agritourism is kind of a necessity as a trend. I know we're trying it as best we can, and I know these guys are as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think one of my concerns that I think it's where it's going, but it's not necessarily where I think it should go, is that it can be really siphoned into a couple products. The pumpkin patches, the Christmas trees, these are things consumers get really excited about, and so it's a great opportunity to invite them to farms, but I would hope too that we can look into other ways to bring agriculture to people.
The seasonality, you want to expand the seasonality of it, it sounds.
Yeah, and just like the products too, like can we be more creative in the way that we sell these products? For us, this has always been, we're very passionate about food and drink, so we've always thought in that direction, but I think there's opportunity to have a really successful agritourism business in a larger season that, you know, maybe showcases more products that you grow at your farm through maybe like, you know, pop-up dinners with chefs or, you know, things of that nature where you're inviting people for more than a 21-day temporary permit period. health department people know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think the theme that we saw a lot of a while ago, I'll start by saying we are first generation farmers. We're on the younger side. I'm getting older faster the longer I farm. But we didn't grow up with a farming background. We don't have, no one in our family farmed, and we bought our farm just about this will be our 10th year. So we really had to build it from the ground up, and in those 10 years, I honestly bought my farm and thought that we would be a wedding venue because that was what agritourism looked like in Pierce and King County at the time. And that was where a lot of the money was at. I quickly realized that I lived on my farm and I didn't want to have weddings at my house every single weekend for the entire summer. And so scratched that idea and had to really figure out what that would look like. And for us, that is so far left field that we're the nation's only cocktail farm. And we can dive into what that means. There's a whole thing on one of these slides. But I think what's hard for me as a farmer is that food in the agritourism space is almost impossible to do. And it's a shame because that's what farms are supposed to be doing is growing food and making food and helping educate people about food. But because of health department rules, it was impossible on our farm. We would need an entirely new septic system and we would need an entirely new well. And that would have been a well over $200,000 investment, and that's before I even started growing anything. And so what we ended up doing was buying a commercial building instead. And so our agritourism is not on our farm at all. It's in a very, very rural town. And we invite people to come out and experience what we're growing on the farm, but we have to do that away from the farm because agritourism doesn't make sense for us in Pierce County. So.
Which unfortunately is counter to the foundational belief of what agritourism is.
Exactly.
And so you're providing the product, but not the experience.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a missing link that people are constantly asking us about. So when do we go to the farm? Well, Yeah.
Yeah, and what's wild is that I was like, okay, but how do I do this? And it was the steps that when I was trying to, because I'm a hoop jumper thrower. And so I was like, okay, what hoop are you gonna put in front of me? And I'll try to jump through that. And it was literally take my product and then produce it under WSDA rules and then sell it to this other company I had so that then I could sell it under Pierce County rules. And it was just insane. And so we gave up and we bought a commercial building.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because
Yeah.
I'm sure that's something that a lot of folks that are either in it or starting to get in it or considering getting in it face that same challenge.
Yeah.
Christy?
So I'll start by saying I'm filling in for Rich Cockrell tonight. And so just a little background with me, I'm a third generation farmer, actually. I'm an attorney by trade. I've come back to the farm. I am the epitome of every Hallmark movie you've seen where the girl goes to Boston, she comes back to Seattle, she lands on the farm. After practicing for 15 years, meets the man of her dreams, has a child, and now runs the family farm. So that is basically where I am today. So we're in a little bit of a different position because we're established, right? So my folks started the farm, the Christmas tree farm, over 40 years ago. They wanted to diversify probably before agritourism was really even discussed or coined as agritourism. And really they used one of the farms, which has become the U-Cut and retail aspect or leg of our company, to really sell more trees in a slump. That's how it began. And that happened over 40 years ago, and it's been running ever since, mainly because we want to keep diversity in our companies. So when I was a senior in high school, my folks started a nursery, a conifer nursery farm as well, to supply not only ourselves and our farms, but local people in Washington, Oregon, and California that now has expanded nationally and internationally. So we have three legs of the stool, if you will. I know we're here to talk about the agritourism side of that, but I think my perspective is a bit different because it is a little bit more grounded, a little bit older, a little more established. But what I will say is, I do think after having seen what my folks have gone through over the last 40 years as it relates to the retail side of things and being involved in agritourism is that I think it will flourish in Pierce County, but much like everyone on this panel has talked about, I think that what it requires of our elected officials and policymakers is that they actually keep at the very center of when they're hearing and learning about things, the people who actually work the ground and derive product from that ground, because that's how we make a living. And I see a lot of people shaking your heads because you all know I'm speaking your language. But I think what that means, instead of coming up with a summation or a summary, or basically I'll just say that, and backing into it, we need to be kept at the center of that and really have the elected officials and policymakers utilize the resources that are available to them. For instance, the Ag Committee is a huge, huge part of that. I think hiring Mike Poteet, which was a result of the Agriculture Committee being reinstituted, was a very big deal because it helps all of us navigate that maze that you feel when you're looking at getting a permit or trying to discover whether or not you can build a structure and what kind of structure and how big and you know, what sort of liabilities do we need to be involved in, which is then where the Farm Bureau comes in, because they have the time to provide the information to all of us when we need it. So I do think it will flourish. However, I think there is still more work, and I think that it's just critical and significant that because I think the second part of your question was what would we like to say to elected officials, is that we really do need to be at the center of that. And by doing that, I think you have to listen. And we have these sorts of panel conversations, or you're having that conversation, not just having the assistant call back, but actually having that conversation, visiting the farms, talking to the stakeholder farmers, and collaborating with, again, the Ag Committee. I think it's just instrumental to have that for agritourism to flourish in Pierce County.
Thank you. And that rolls a little bit into our next question. And if we've covered that, it's okay, but I'm going to ask it anyway. It says you've all been involved in agritourism for a period of time now. You have different locations, venues, and operations. Would you please share with us the changes you had to make in order to allow the public to visit your farm? And what was the experience in working with Pierce County, their process regarding regulatory issues, permitting, zoning, and the use of your land?
We haven't had too much of an issue with that. We were already pretty well established due to Schultz's pre-development, so.
A different Schultz, by the way.
Yeah, not
just so
different
everyone is
Schultz,
aware. It's a cousin.
But let me ask you a question. You've taken it a different direction, so a little bit of an expansion on that. You're trying to introduce alcohol and various other things. So how has that experience been?
It has certainly been interesting. We have two different sections, one of which was the distillery, and that was my foremost experience with the county. And it was hit or miss. You had a lot of communication was the biggest issue. For one example, there was a gentleman who went on vacation, and we couldn't talk to anybody for 2 weeks because he was the last person who had our application. So that's just one small example. But we also had many other positive experiences as well, especially, I'm going to give you a shout out there, Mike. He's been phenomenal at putting us in touch with people we need to talk to. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of moving parts. And I also know that the county's a living entity. It's people. So people are not infallible. So I don't hold that against the county per se. That gentleman made that mistake, but.
Very good.
Yeah. Lots of different permits, though. Lots. And lots of money, unfortunately.
Well, the first part of this question has to go to my sister. My sister owns the farm, and we're business partners, so most of that she had gone through already. And then I kind of take over when we started to move into our existing restaurant now, the soda shop, and we went through all of that permitting process, so. What were your changes? Zoning.
We bought a whole new
permitting,
building.
things we did?
We scrapped the idea of really ever having people on the farm, to be frank. And we bought a commercial building that was on city water and city sewer, and
But talk more
and
about
had parking.
why. Like,
and
what was, the sewer was a huge part of it.
yeah, I mean, the septic and the well was a big part of it. It was also
So with
weird.
that, excuse me, I'm going to interrupt just so that we're clear. So that would be health department issues?
Yeah, if I wanted to serve food. So if I wanted to invite people onto my farm and just let them walk around and see my farm, then I can do that. And that is something that we're circling back now that we have, like, we're a food business, we grow food. So that was our number one priority, was to push out a food product and to get our farm established. So we did that. We grow herbs and edible flowers. We turn that into cocktail syrups. We ship those syrups all around the country. We're direct to consumer. We are like where a lot of people say that this is the direction that farms have to go when you're small. We're on 10 acres, so we're really small in the world of ag. You have to diversify in every single direction you possibly can to make it work. And you have to be completely relentless. I know that there's quite a few other farmers in the room, and any elected officials who are here, I'm going to ask them at the end to all stand up, and you guys should all have a conversation with them, because I've had lots of conversations with them, and our experience is not the only experience. One of the people who is in the very back of the room, I'm going to call him out, but Ryan and Haley are doing a very similar thing in Buckley, which is where we're at, and they're trying to create some sort of value-added product out of their dairy. They have a big dairy. And they also had to buy a commercial building in downtown Buckley because it's the only way to make that work. Really, really hard to get financing on that. I will add what you guys have added, that Mike has been absolutely amazing. Not only can I go to Mike when I need him, but more importantly, he brings things to us. So when there's a grant in Pierce County, when there's a grant with WSDA, when there's a USDA grant, he has this lovely email list and he sends it and we apply. And so grants have been huge. I know a lot of the farmers in this room definitely understand that, like, if we didn't have our grants, our Pierce County grants, we got the Pierce County Innovation Grant, and that was huge for our farm. We also have the WSDA grant, and we have a USDA grant. So for elected officials, that is like absolutely critical for the success of our new farm. Without that, we wouldn't have that. What I hope is that, like I said, circling back, is that eventually we will be able to do agritourism, and it's something that we're talking a lot about this month in our strategy sessions, because it truly is, like, when we are talking about our customers, we try to create a super fan, right, is what we call them, the most loyal followers, the ones who are talking about us on social media. And the easiest way to create a super fan is to have them step foot on the farm, see the cocktail garden when it's all blooming and it's beautiful. They take photos, they post it, it's great. That is your super fan, and that's the easiest way to get them. It's just really hard to do right now. So we are working through that, and we are extremely hopeful.
And for us, a super fan is worth thousands of dollars in marketing that you could spend otherwise just hoping to find them. It is a way that we are making up for right now by working endless hours. We work more on marketing than we do on farming or owning a restaurant. We are on social media constantly. We have a blog. We are doing all of these things with PR. We spend more money on PR a month than we do on any other thing. Isn't that crazy? But that's because of the grant we have, and you guys can ask us about that grant if you want. But all of those things are necessary for us to gain a customer base. And that's unfortunate, because if they could come to the farm, you know, we're in a pretty big area. And when Venice had a garlic sale, real low key, real illegal back in the day, she had 891 people show up at her garlic sale the last time she did it.
People want to come to the farm.
She just put up sandwich boards one weekend. So, you know, it would be nice to not have as many hurdles. And to put some numbers to what some of the things she said, you know, you said it was $200,000 to get the well.
It would be well and septic.
Which would have been required. So our original idea was, like, we do food and drinks. Let's do some kind of like pop-up mocktail bar, maybe a cocktail bar, because at the time I was running a cocktail catering company, and so we were able to do like off-site liquor permits. And then we'll do like wood-fired pizza, right? We have this garden with tons of herbs that marries really well with pizza. Big thing in the Midwest. But for us to do that on our farm was going to cost more than the commercial building we ended up buying, which is crazy, right? Like, we own a whole piece of real estate now that we've had to dump a lot of extra money into as well. But that's kind of the long and short of it, is like we were able to buy a building for less than it cost to do all of that.
To use the farm, I already paid a lot of money for.
And then once we got the soda shop, now we have this restaurant location. And, you know, another piece of your question I think is important is I don't think it's coincidence that you have a distillery and a brewery and we have a bar. I think that there are certain products that are easier to market to people, and we've both kind of caught on to that. But I don't know, I have found that my experience with the Liquor Control Board is also somehow easier than our health department locally. And a huge piece of that is COVID-19 interrupting the workings of the health department, and we completely recognize that was, we opened in 2020, worst time to open a restaurant. But
again, just to kind of capsulize.
and it's not because of the people, it's just because
No, this
of the
isn't-
regulations.
Yeah, this isn't personal.
Yeah.
But to capsulize a little bit of what you're saying, again, we go back to the product versus the experience. And agritourism is a marriage of both of those.
Yes.
And unless you have both of those, then you're really not engaging agritourism at its core.
Well, for us, and I think what's key about that is for us, like she said, to just invite people onto our farm and walk around. What do they do when they're there, right? People need something to buy, or they need something to do. They need that piece that connects them. And food and drink is the thing that connects all of us in life, right? It's the easiest way to pull at someone's heartstrings, is to make them feel like warm and comforted and fed. And so for us, it was like we would have to do dinners, we would have to do drinks. Like, we don't want people just wandering around. And you know, people who do U-Picks here, like that's another activity you can do for agritourism. And on 10 acres, we're only actually growing flowers on 1 acre. People can do a lot of damage on 1 acre real quick, you know, if you do a U-Pick. So that wasn't really an option for us. So you kind of have to be really creative about what activity and you bring to draw people in. And that's where I think that there's a huge opportunity here in food and drinks that we're not utilizing in our state.
But also,
Well, on
I would
this half of the state.
say that like we need to expand our definition of agritourism, because like not every farm, for example, I'll use Ryan again, like Ryan doesn't want people on his farm because he has a dairy, and that's dangerous. And like we don't all, like for some of us, this is our home. So we want to be able to continue to grow food, but there's ways that you can do agritourism that's not necessarily having so many people at your farm all the time. So for us, it's like we would like to be, yes, we want to be able to do that, but it's also getting our especially our financiers to think through what is agritourism. And if you are building a retail satellite location, that is still agritourism. And so that still needs to be thought of as a farm business, because without our soda shop, we wouldn't be surviving today. Our soda shop is what connects our consumer. And so, yes, while it would have been nice to be able to do that on the farm, that might not have been viable, but like our location is still an agritourism location, and I hope that it continues to be thought of in that way and not just a restaurant, because it's really easy to just place us in a restaurant and not give us the additional like thought and value of it being a farm-backed restaurant, which is very different.
Yeah,
than
we're making our lives
a
twice
Chipotle.
as difficult as if we were just ordering from Aramark.
And I think that's one of my most frustrating things, is that my food, like when I'm growing it, is not going 14 different places before it gets to my restaurant. It goes from my farm to my business. And so, but that food is treated the exact same way as if it was brought to me on a big truck from the Midwest.
Thank you. Christy,
So
do you have
I'll
anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just briefly say again, established with structure, established with product, but still dealing with the same issues as it relates to permitting and food or drink or anything else that we may want to offer. Because in agritourism, it's not just about, I think, informing the consumer about the important role that agriculture plays in their daily lives and in our communities. It's educating them about your product. It's educating them about your family. It's educating about them about what you grow, how it grows. It doesn't just grow in a day when you plant the seed. It takes certain management practices and industry standards. And I think that's some of what you're talking about as well. But as you also all mentioned, there's food and drink that plays a part in it. And so on our farm, when we wanted to do something like that as well, it became a very difficult issue. So we ended up getting creative because we were told, get creative. Now, this was several years ago, before Mike, before the Ag Committee, and before others were involved as they are today. And so we started hiring, that's when food trucks really started entering the market. And espresso stands that were getting little carts that they could transport. They were portable. So we actually ended up doing food carts and a coffee cart, and collaborating with those owners so that we could provide to our customer things that we would want if we went to a Christmas tree farm, because it is the experience. And we know that's what agritourism is, right? It's the experience in addition to the information and the education. So I would say that absolutely is another significant thing that needs to be addressed in Pierce County for sure. I would also say for us, our farm is divided with the trail that runs, as all of you know, through the valley. And so we were fortunate enough to develop a lease with the county to actually utilize property that they own and put it into production of Christmas trees. So there's a lease where we're actually growing our product on the easement of the trail, so we can actually just increase the production that we have. I think the county likes that, honestly, because the trail does go through many farms, and so it allows the people who use the trail that are good, law-abiding people using the trail, it allows them to enjoy nature, right? To see what their communities and their farmers are growing for them. And there's excitement in that. We place little informational signs on the trail so people understand, breathe in this oxygen because this is what this farm produces. Or a seed, it takes so many 1,000 pounds of seed to create the trees that are grown in this area. And oh, by the way, Santa Claus is about 1,000 miles from here because you got to make it a little fun for everyone, right? But I think the issue that we have actually, although that is a great benefit for the county and for us, so it's mutually beneficial, the issue that we have is the trail does run through our farm. And at night, the laws are different. They don't exist, actually. And even sometimes during the days. So we have had arson on our property with barns. We have had people trespassing, breaking in, stealing, and even in broad daylight when we are trying to work the farm and we have our gates open, but it specifically says, no trespassing, please. We have people thinking that they can come onto the property and ride around it. So I think those are things that we have challenges with as it relates to the county, because it really is, the trail as we see it is a park. It's no different than Metro Park in Tacoma. It's a park that people utilize in the county and from other areas, but it's not being taken care of for security purposes, trespassing, garbage. So those are things that we, I think, deal with, in addition to the other farmers and landowners along that trail, that I think we probably need maybe a little more traction with, to be honest. Because it's not only a safety issue for other people who are on the trail, it's a safety issue for those of us going to work or checking something else. I don't go alone to that farm. I actually take people with me. And our customers have complained about it as well. So those are things that I think are critical when we talk about agritourism and expanding it. I would also say for us, there are compliance issues as well around our farm. And I think that is a really big issue for us because it actually compromises what we grow. So when there's backup water from other landowners because they've built in berms and they're building things around it and it's designated ARL land or current use, but you have mobile homes and people living in them and RVs and everything else, what ends up happening is that backs everything up and we then can't produce the product we need to for our consumers to get what they want and have that experience on our farm. So I think those are the issues for us that we really contend with that may not be so much permitting for us per se, but there are issues on each side of us and there are issues that separate us and divide us that I think probably could be better dealt with, that I think, again, policymakers and our electeds should be well aware of, because it doesn't just impact Snowshoe Evergreen and our family. It impacts everyone on that trail, and it probably impacts all of you as well in different areas.
Thank you. Last question, and you've touched on a lot of this, but based on your experience, I'm going to ask a different question. As an ongoing operation, Pierce County requires regular annual checkups, inspections, permitting, and so forth. Do you have any comments about that or suggested changes as to how that process might go? And we have a hard stop on the meeting at 8:30, so let's maybe, if you can give us one or two insights into your feelings about that, I think it would be really appreciated.
As for the annual inspections or anything, we actually haven't had any issues too much on that front. Just your standard checks on fire extinguishers and all that fun stuff. As for a suggestion, I don't know. I don't have a hard answer, but if there was an easier way for people who have been a proven entity in the agricultural world to have a fast track or reduced fees or something of that nature, that's just something off the top of my head where I could see some improvement, or at least for the farm side. But I'm sure everybody in every industry feels that they should get a break, so it's hard to say.
Thanks, Lynn. Go ahead.
The thing that sticks out to me is that having a direct-to-consumer retail product, we are regulated by the WSDA as well as the Pierce County Health Department for our restaurant.
As well as the FDA.
As well as the FDA, yep. So we get all of our licensing and testing done by the FDA. WSDA then does an annual inspection, and then Pierce County does annual inspection as well as
whatever they want to pop in.
Regulatory check-ins, which we're in Wilkeson. We're at the edge of, civilizations, exactly. So when they come out and visit everyone, and we have had a great experience with all of our inspectors. We have got a great relationship with them. But it's interesting which of those can potentially have a much bigger impact on food safety. Would be WSDA. We ship nationally. It could be, hundreds of thousands of people. And yet some of the rules just don't make sense in the Pierce County one. And we actually have equipment that we have to mark WSDA only, do not use. And then just to make it easier, now we just put it in another room. When
So
the
there's
Pierce County Health
equipment-
Department comes in.
There's
because
equipment you
certain-
can have with WSDA, but can't have with Pierce County. So we
it's
work in the
production
same
equipment,
kitchen.
but it's the same kitchen.
So
Yeah.
it's
So-
really fun.
So we produce our product when our restaurant isn't open. Our restaurant is open Thursday through Sunday. So Monday through Wednesday, we have production equipment in there, and not all of it is legal for both entities, which is just So that's one thing that comes to mind for me. Do you have anything else?
So some form of continuity possibly.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
acceptance of one inspection possibly, and that has some kind of trickle down, if you will, that if you were approved at this level, you should be approved at this level because you've already been inspected. Some kind of awareness or recognition. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and the equipment that we can't use for Pierce County is far more affordable equipment. So your standard juicer is allowed with WSDA, $200 Breville juicer. We have to get an $800 made in China or a $7,000 Zumex juicer made in the USA for Pierce County's requirements. Because it's a commercial juicer versus an NSF consumer juicer, which is more of an employee safety issue, as they've explained it to us, that it has to be able to be completely taken apart and cleaned, and then also safe for use by all of your employees. But that's fully capable with our other juicer as well.
It's like our employees when they work on WSDA
days
are
they're like,
less
we get
safe.
to get,
it just makes there's zero logic to it. We are actually told when we were opening, we had an inspector with WSDA, and we have two doors. We have a front and a back entrance. This is just an example of what we all deal with. But we had a front and a back entrance, and so we had our WSDA inspection, and the inspector was like, okay, which door do you use to come in? And we were like, well, we use the front door to come in. And so she like did her whole inspection and was like, okay, you know what, like, there's like, we were under construction in the front half, and so she's like, I'd prefer if you use the back door because it's just like a little bit cleaner on the back. So I was like, cool, we'll do that, right? And then so then the next week I have my Pierce County inspection, and so the same question came up, well, how do you enter and exit the building? So I was like, okay, I'm smart this time, I'm gonna say the back door, right? Oh, we all come in the back door. And so in our inspection report, they're like, we'd really prefer if you came in the front door because there's vegetation in the back door. So when I'm making syrup, I'm supposed to use one door, but when I'm running my restaurant, I'm supposed to use a completely different door. And I think the other thing, like, to add on to that is that, like, this is just Pierce County, and so, like, you'll go to other counties, like, I'll go to, like, Yakima, for example, and I'm like, oh, like, I love to go to Yakima, it's wine country, like, there's so much agritourism in that county, and I go and I'm like, how do they do that? How do they do that? How do they do that? In my county, that's all illegal. I cannot do that, and it's because Yakima County gets to make their own rules up, and they have better rules. And so part of me is like, well, I just want to move to Yakima Farm.
So, you know, you have to wonder, the east side of the mountains has a deeper foundation in agriculture. And so you have to wonder if there's a practical application on awareness, and I hate to use this phrase, but a common sense approach
Absolutely.
that takes place in different parts of our state that maybe could be a bit of a learning curve for Pierce County as we grow agritourism in this
And
county.
I will say, like, I have asked this question with the health department of, like, why? Why is it so hard? And their answer was, which makes sense on a certain level of, well, in Pierce County, we have more people. So because we have more people, you have more exposure to risk than, say, someone in Yakima County. That was what I was told. And so I'm like, okay, I guess, but, like, I'm in Wilkeson. The town of Wilkeson has 500 people that live in it. I have maybe 1,000 people that come, like, we do our customer printout. We have 1,000 customers that come to my shop the entire year. So no, like, my exposure to risk is not more than another county.
Christy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just make it really short because I know we want to make sure we get done.
We do.
Yeah, I know, and he's, so I'll make it really short. I wrote the word down. I know, honey, I heard that too. Consistency is what I'm hearing here, and I actually have the same thought, Jerome, where the depth of ag is far greater in areas other than Pierce County. We know that to be true, all of us who are farming in Pierce County. We've seen different industries leave for various reasons. So I think you're absolutely right that there is that, but it does directly impact consistency. And I'm hearing that with the permitting process as it relates to the health department. For us, it's zoning and ag classification. And so there is absolutely no consistency as it relates to enforcement. And I am seeing heads shaking, yes. We are not the only person that deal with that. That is a very big issue for us, as I've already described, at our farm that is used for agritourism, and having properties around us that are designated and classified as the same, but the rules just don't seem to be the same for those individuals. And it directly impacts us, absolutely. So I would say that consistency is a very big issue. And I would probably then go on to say the secondary part of that is knowledge or competency at the front desk of any county department. Again, not throwing anyone under the bus, but you may get a different answer today than you get tomorrow at the same department. And I think that means that the county elected officials and policymakers should be really honing in on making sure that the people at the front desk, which is the person that you see first, they represent the county. That's it. Our greeter is the most important person in our business. We know it to be true because he or she makes or breaks that person from coming in and having a great experience or not. And so I think what I would probably say is if there's something that could really be changed effectively and efficiently. It's making sure that those people at that front desk that represent the county are absolutely knowledgeable in their job. And if they don't know, they have the confidence to say, I will find out, instead of giving the wrong information. Because then you're armed with misinformation, and that can be dangerous for everyone, right? So I think that's what I would say. On a positive note, again, I wrote down, because you asked about a positive, I think the best thing that's happened in the last 5 years is this Ag Committee and the hiring of Mike Poteet. I think it was instrumental in really helping everyone in this room and others who are trying to start an agritourism farm or even get started in agriculture. These are the people, don't forget their faces, you should talk to them too, because they are representing us when they go and talk to the folks at the county council level and even at the exec's office. So I just wanted to end on that note.
Thank you for that. We're
It's positive.
tight on time. Go ahead.
It's the fastest thing. The other very positive thing, and I talked to Claire, who has a flower farm in LB, about this too, that Pierce County Innovation Grant was one of the best grants that I have seen, because it truly allowed you to write the grant in the way that would actually be effective for your business. And there weren't a million like caveats to it or like narrow definitions. It was
Very
really
flexible.
like flexible about what you needed, and we really appreciated that grant.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. With that, our friends at Maris Farm have provided a 3-minute video that we would like you to watch. It speaks to exactly what we've talked about here, and so just please indulge us for 3 minutes.
If you go back just a few generations, everybody lived on a farm, almost. And if you didn't, you at least had a relative who did. And even just 2 or 3 generations back, people would visit their grandpa's farm or their uncle's farm, or, you know, they had a farm in the family to visit. And now most people don't. But what has happened is they have adopted farms like ours to visit, and they consider it their own. And they may not say it that way or think of it that way consciously, but subconsciously, our farm belongs to those guests who come. Ourselves as just the caretakers of that farm that really belongs to, you know, several 100,000 people.
Farms that are open to the public are becoming big business.
That's right. That's because the agritourism sector has tripled from 2002 to 2017, growing to a nearly $1 billion industry, and some are hoping that's going to help save their farm.
Things you can do for a living where you can see that appreciation and people even tell you. That's my hope for the business, is that it goes on forever and that our family takes care of it for all the other families that visit.
thanks, Tom, for playing that, and thanks to Maris Farms for providing it. I just want to say, to me, that exemplifies everything that we're talking about here today. And, you know, for staff and elected officials and all of you individuals, the ability to work together to identify issues and problems and find a way to solve them is really the key to this evolution, because the farming has changed and it will continue to change. And as it becomes more urbanized through this area, through our county, that is a given. So, time to get creative. With that, we have about 15 minutes. One comment online. We'll start with that, and then we're going to ask questions from the floor. The questions can be directed to our committee, our panel, or county staff, or elected officials.
It is a comment, not so much a question, but Jess on the Zoom call would like to see changes to the Pierce County sign code to allow for farmers to use standard size corrugated plastic signs to advertise seasonal farm products. Currently, the sign code only permits, only allows permit exemptions, I can speak today, for signs that are 2 square feet or less, and that is smaller than the standard size corrugated plastic sign. And the sign permit process does not make sense for changing verbiage or for temporary signs.
So Mike, is there any, do you have any comment? We'll just start there as far as, I'm going to throw you right. You got too many accolades, man. I'm going to.
So I am familiar with some of the signage. Oh, on the mic? Okay.
The mic isn't for the room, it's for those online.
Yeah, I am familiar with this issue. I think I'm familiar with the farm where this has taken place. There are some issues in our sign code. We did some updates on sign code a couple years ago, not related to this issue. I think that's a valid point to talk about the standardized corrugated sign. That is something that is not addressed in our code as far as thinking about what industry standards are and how they can be applied and implemented at farm sites. So that's something that we can certainly take note of. I see Dean scribbling away over there, so that's a good sign, pun intended. So Jess, we will consider that, and we will keep working on your other sign permit stuff with you as well.
And I think the overriding issue there is that much of the code pertains to year-round businesses. And the element of a seasonal business, of a rural setting, it's a square peg, round hole right now. And hopefully it's going to be something as we work on this that can evolve, and there can be an elaboration or separate sections that are expanded upon that will help agriculture. Questions from the floor. Rick?
Mr. Chair, so if we have a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We need questions so they can be heard on TV.
Apologize. You got to get up and go to the mic or they won't hear you on TV.
There I go. So to the committee, if we have a question, comment, thought, or concern, we want the committee to consider, how do we communicate that to you folks?
Great question. I'll answer that.
Rick Thompson.
If you have first of all, we meet every month, with the exception of December. Secondly, it's a public meeting. We meet right here. You're welcome to attend. There is the ability, we are doing hybrids. There's the ability to Zoom. And Tom and Mike are our coordinators now that Dan is gone. And so if you have a specific question that you would like to get on the agenda and you can't attend, please address it to either Tom or Mike, or you're certainly welcome to address it to me. And we will make sure that it's in the good of the order or a specific agenda item depending on the magnitude of the issue.
And there's public comment at every meeting.
Thank you, Misha. You are right.
Fourth Wednesday.
Is there a group email that you guys use, or just send it to you?
Give me your contact information, I'll get you on the agricultural contact list.
And that's something different than you send out, Mike, is the committee? All right, I'm gonna write it down for you.
Can I make a comment about, so, Health Department, it's really hard to change those regulations, but it's not impossible. Checking their faces. A couple years ago, it came to our attention that farmers who grow raw milk were not allowed to sell it at farmers markets in Pierce County, even though they were selling it legally from their farm in Pierce County, and they were taking it to King County to sell at those farmers markets. So it got brought to this committee, and we took it to our county council, and then they took it to the health department, and that got changed. So that's a really small example. Like, I don't know that we're gonna change a lot in the restaurant inspection world, but this is where it starts. And so don't get so frustrated. Like, think of us as a potential resource to do what we can, and all of our voices collectively do make a difference. And so that's just an example of how this meeting is really helpful for us to think about the issues that, like, I don't really have health department on my farm, so I didn't know about that. But, you know, now we do, so.
Thank you, Misha. I appreciate that. Any other question from the floor? Go ahead, sir.
Ryan Minsoner is my wife, Haley, and I. We're just trying to start our creamery up in technically King County, but then Pierce County will actually be the site of the retail location. First, I want to thank Pierce County Council, because we have another farm in Graham that we lease from a farmland trust, and the elk and geese are horrendous, and they helped us get rifle restriction lifted. And so we have not had geese this year decimating our field. So thank you, by the way. That was where I actually saw government move quickly, which was really cool. So thank you for doing that. I have a couple questions. I can talk all day, so I'm going to try not to. But we are going through the same thing with creating a retail store. I think we're going to have some rude awakenings listening to you guys on some of the stuff. Our big issue has been financing. We got our whole creamery financed through the WSDA Farm Service Agency, but because we have this retail location, they will not finance that because it is not part of the farm ground. My first question would be, is there a way to get our council to help change some state rules? Or is it just specific, like how much can you guys actually help us do something with the state on some of these things? Farm Service Agency is a national deal, so I understand that, but financing is really hard for small farms, and then when you try to diversify like everybody keeps telling us to do, we can't get the lending, so we've had to go through Small Business Administration. We are now on our third bank try, and we actually got funded 2 weeks ago, finally, after 3 times going through SBA, and the first 2 banks are like, well, we don't, that's ag, and we don't understand that, and SBA is like, well, this is SBA, and we don't understand ag, and then they're like, we give up. So those are things that I don't know what Pierce County can do other than help us have a bigger voice to the people that can change some of that. And then is there a way to get, last question, sorry, I'm asking too many, but is there a way to get in Pierce County a like one size fits inspection? Because like I know in King County right now, where our processing plant's gonna be, my same inspector will inspect my dairy, she'll also inspect my processing plant, and if we do any fruits, she will also do the fruit inspection inside the plant, which makes it a lot nicer for us. We haven't started a retail location, so I'm sure I'll have more of this going on pretty soon. But from what I'm hearing, it would be nice to be able to have one stop shop from an inspection standpoint, because we're also organic, so we volunteer to have an insane amount of inspecting going on, and we pay for it. So
let's start taking, because there's experts in the room here that can help with those questions. As it relates to the state versus county, our committee gives information to the council that on items that we think are important. And then I'll let one of the electeds talk about how they establish their lists for their lobbyists and so forth. If you want to, or Mr. Mello.
Thank you. Yeah, every year we come up with a list to do both federal and state lobbying. We have to know what's going on. A lot of times we just don't know what affects, you know, the agriculture community or agritourism. So for us, it's educating us also. We can definitely be advocates at whatever level. You know, we're politicians, so we can talk that lingo with our state legislature and our federal legislature also. So with that, you know, I don't think, you know, you talk about the signs. We just went through 3 years ago and rewrote all of our sign code. No one mentioned anything about the effects on agriculture. We all heard from commercials and other things like that. So we need to hear from you. And then, of course, with Dan now with the Farm Bureau, you know, they've seen that. They know what's going on at the state and the federal level. And if it's an issue that we can take to the Department of Commerce pertaining to financing or any other grants, loans, things like that, we would love to be advocates at that level and get them to understand what it takes to be a farmer, to be in this business, and the challenges not only as business owners but farmers, and the complexity where all that starts to butt heads. You know, we hear it from the health department. You know, I sat on the board for 4 years. Thank you, Council Member Paul Herrera, for taking my place on the health board. But just to get the water issues changed for ADUs in Pierce County took an act of Congress to get the health department to understand what we were attempting to do. So saying all that, please contact us and let us know what's going on out there. And, you know, Council Chair Mello will put on his rubber boots and run out to your farm and play. And same thing with Council Member Krueger and Council Member Herrera. We're for you. We're there for you. So whatever we can do, you know, just tell us. Okay. Thanks, Dave.
One other thing I'd like to mention, I believe your farm, the issue about the firearms and taking care of some of those animals, that our committee was engaged in that, if I recall, and wrote a letter of recommendation in favor of that. No, it's not to pat us on the back. It's just to talk about, we got word, I believe, from staff or council that this was an issue. We evaluated it. We gave our opinion based on the Ag Advisory Committee to the council, and the council acted. So it does take all of us. And so anyway, that's it. Very good. Go ahead, sir.
I have a quick comment about the, it's our first time here tonight. We found out from a neighbor, we got an email, looked it up, and the Agriculture Advisory Committee says that the next meeting is January 25th, so that's already got past info on it. There's no mention of a Zoom link, so it would be nice because we might have chose to do that tonight instead because of the snow. And then just one more thing, it mentions that there's an FAA organization member. I think it's FFA. I'm going to put that out there.
Thank you for, we really appreciate that because we don't want to be the best kept secret. And
Yeah,
thanks for coming.
My name's Dale Maris with Maris Farms up in Buckley. I'll try to keep it short because I know we're short on time. A couple of things that we're having to deal with right now is what the county's doing right now is if you have a parcel, you're only allowed one driveway on that parcel. We bought a piece specifically for parking because it had 3 driveways onto it. I wanted to do a remodel on the house that was there. One of the conditions to getting the remodel permit was that I abandoned 2 of the 3 driveways. So it's one size doesn't fit all. If you got a 1/4 acre lot with a small house on it, he gets the same driveway that somebody's got a 600 acre piece with 10 driveways on it. He has to get rid of all of them if he wants to do anything else to it. Another one is the liquor license. There's several of them that we've applied for, that we qualify for, and they arbitrarily pick and choose what you can and can't do. If we could get some help from the county to, we want to follow the law. We're not trying to get outside of the rules, but if the rules say that we're qualified, we'd like to be able to get what's offered instead of what they think we deserve. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
I will second that.
Thank you, Mr. Marison. Thanks again for this video. I thought that really told a great story for us. So with that, we have about 2 minutes, and then our broadcast stops, correct? Okay. We still will have the ability just to mingle and network. Go ahead. Nice
My
to
name's
see you.
Mary Schockler. I farm in Eatonville. Agriculture is the second largest industry in the state. I'm on the Farm Bureau. Last year, and I know Mike, I walked into King Pierce building, said, "Where's the agriculture?" And Christy nailed it. Have your greeter know what's going on. Oh, we don't have any agriculture here. And I was shocked. I was looking for Mike. I thought he had an office, and he may not have at the time, but it's the second largest industry. And Pierce County should be celebrating that, and they should have something about agriculture somewhere when you walk in, so any of the new farmers can go in and get their questions asked, because that's usually your point, your building department. You go and ask lots of questions, and I couldn't find it. So I was kind of surprised. So Christy, you said it just right. I hope you go back and make sure all your county people know there's agriculture in this state and in this county. And I would be happy to bring scones up to the county.
Thank you very much. Dan, we got time for one more. This is it.
Okay, real fast. You've heard this a little bit, but I want to try and make it as clear as possible. There's a couple organizations here that you have a conduit to get your issues that you have heard. So there's the Ag Committee, obviously, is what this meeting is. It's a public meeting. You come to the public meeting and you speak at it. You have time for public comment. Numerous issues have come before the Ag Committee through public comment that then went all the way to the county council or to the other side of the government, Pierce County government as a whole, right? And so things have happened because of that. So bring your issues here to this forum and make a public comment. There's a very good chance that action will possibly be taken on it. And the other thing I want to say about the Farm Bureau is that there's open seats on the board right now. So you don't have to wait to try and get involved and then maybe make a meeting or two or make a comment or two. You have an avenue as an individual to have an impact there as well. So there's a couple different opportunities for all of you and any of your farmer friends to have either your voice directly heard or to make your own impact by getting involved with these organizations or making public comment, all that type of thing. So I just wanted to be clear.
Thank you, Dan. One last announcement I'd like to make before we just start the networking section and close the meeting. Councilman Morrell reminded me that there is still about $1.2 million available in those grants that you referenced that were so helpful. So that is a real vehicle and certainly a shot in the arm for someone that qualifies. So please keep that in mind. With that, I'll close the meeting. And I want to thank you all for coming. You're welcome to stay. There's some refreshments back there, and please take advantage of the networking. There's material over here. We've got our elected officials, our staff. I'd like to thank our hosts again, WSU. I'd like to thank the staff, and certainly thank all the councilmen that are here.